Hey, everybody, welcome to episode 175 of the Masterclass Podcast. My name is Cam, and his name is Dave, and we are your co-hosts with the mosts. I was trying to be clever, Dave, and it went off the rails real quick. Anyways, episode 175. How are you, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I am happy to be here. That is the answer I will give. I am happy to be here and to see your bearded face across the internet.
Yeah. I think I'm going to keep it. I'm kind of digging.
I think you should.
Keeping the facial hair. So, yeah. It's a new thing for me.
It is. You were not allowed to have one for many, many years.
No, I've never grown one.
Really? Even pre-police days?
Yeah. Nope. Never did. And honestly, I didn't think I was going to, like, all the guys at work were like, oh, you need to grow a beard. You need to grow a beard. And I was like, all right, I'll grow it out and shave it. And I'm like, might keep it.
There you go. I encourage it. Much less upkeep. Just trim it every once in a while. I don't have to shave every day. It's glorious. No razor burn.
Yeah. I shave like every other day.
Keep it nice and tidy.
Yeah.
I can't, man. I've got very sensitive skin.
Now, when I do eventually leave, I will probably let it get a little unruly.
Old Fisherman Dave.
Might grow the hair too.
Oh boy. I don't believe it when I see it. All right, sir. We are in Hebrews, obviously, still jamming on that old tune. And we're in chapter 4, and we are at verse 14. And so today, we're just going to talk 14, 15, and 16, which are some of my favoritist verses in the Bible. Much like the couple before this whole section is just primo, top-notch, like Italian chef kiss. Good. So yeah, we're doing 4, 14 through 16 today.
Since then we have a great high priest who passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God. Let us hold fast our confession, for we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weakness, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need.
This is good. All right, so we have this great high priest, right? We talked about this previously. We're going to get into further detail on the whole high priest thing next week when we go into chapter 5 and what it means specifically. But, he's saying that Jesus is our great high priest. And since he is our great high priest, we should hold fast our confession. And that is an important thing for us to understand, Dave, what our confession is. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. What do you think that means to hold fast our confession?
Well, so one of the first thoughts that I had with this is, if you're not like overly familiar with the context or the audience here, so this would be not the priest like you and I think of a priest today, in terms of a Catholic father, or even in the Episcopalian Church or something like that. This is this is Aaron in the Levitical, so Old Testament priest here.
Mm-hmm.
And so the audience is a Jewish audience who have this sense of, I can't go before God. Like me as a sinful human being, I really don't get to be in God's presence. The only person that ever really gets to go into God's presence is a high priest, is a Levitical priest. And so so that's sort of the first part here is we're kind of like a complete paradigm shift of just the fact that you and I have this high priest, this eternal priest. And so then it says, let us hold fast to our confession. And really to me, it is holding on to Jesus. It is holding on to the faith that has come, the belief of salvation and redemption through Jesus. Again, there's this, Jesus has come, he's done what he's done. We have the Hebrew people, they have a very long history. This letter wouldn't have been written that long into that history of being a Christian. And so I think the author here is saying, hold fast to who Jesus is and what he has done. So yeah, I don't know if you have more than that, but
no, I appreciate your willingness to dive into the whole history of the priests and Aaron and the Levites and that was I needed that reminder. So that's I appreciate that. Yeah, and then who Jesus is, right, and what he's done for us, and what we then believe because of that, right? What we confess to believe, what we have said, who we have said Jesus is, right? Jesus is the Son of God. That is our
to confess him as our high priest. We are dependent on him because, like I said, there's this long history of doing it a certain way with an actual human priest doing the work for us. And then Jesus came and did what he did. And now it's sort of like, okay, Jesus isn't here anymore. We can't really see him. And it's going to be easy to slip into that old idea of, I need a human being to do that for me. And so I think the author is saying, no, hold on your confession of who Jesus is and what he did for us. And he is our high priest. And don't give up,
For sure. So then it says in verse 15, for we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. And I don't know about you, Dave, but when I think about Jesus, I don't often immediately jump to, oh, he can sympathize with me.
No, I don't.
Oftentimes I think, Jesus is great and I'm grateful for him and I'm thankful for what he did and he was perfect and I'm not and he was the sacrifice that he died the death I deserved to die. I see all of the differences between us and why Jesus is greater and why Jesus is in the position he's in and I'm in the position I'm in and in the relationship and how that affects the relationship, right? Or in the correlation between, he and I and God. And so I don't often get to the whole, oh, Jesus can sympathize with me. And so I think that's one of the really, really interesting parts of this passage, that we're going to carry on with next week too, is that Jesus is our high priest. He is our representative to God. He is the one that goes before us to God as a representation of us. And in that role, he's also able to sympathize with our weaknesses because he's been tempted as we have been tempted, right? He lived on this earth as, a man, yet without sin. And so there's that distinction between sympathy and empathy, right? And that's the reason it's sympathy here is because I know the problems that you've had partially, but I've never actually given into them. So like I can sympathize with your weaknesses because I know what the temptation is, but I've never given into it while you have. And I think it's really, really interesting to try and figure out like why don't I ever think that about Jesus sympathizing with me and having experienced, the temptations that I've experienced. And I don't know why I don't think about that more often. Cause like, if it's like, even when he's on the cross, he says, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. Like even there, he's advocating for us as he's being murdered by humans. He's advocating for the good of humans. And so I think it's very interesting that I don't think of Jesus as a sympathetic person as often as I should. And it's laid out clearly here that he is able to sympathize with our weaknesses because in every respect, he's been tempted as we were or we are.
Mm-hmm.
And yet he didn't give in to sin. And
Right.
so that's a whole nother conversation, that back half. But I'm just the idea that Jesus would sympathize, like not that he's able to, but that he would choose to, says an incredible amount about what's important to him and what he values.
Yeah.
And that's really, I think, to me, the part about this that hits home the most right now is that Jesus chooses to sympathize with me when I'm going through the crap.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really, that's encouraging. That is uplifting. That is, there's this song that Hillsong sings called Another in the Fire. Have you heard it?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yes.
kind of one I'm listening to a lot right now, for various personal reasons. And it's really, it communicates the same concept that when we're in the thick of it, the temptation, the sin, the hard stuff of life, he's right there with us.
Yeah.
When we feel like we're alone, when we feel like we've been abandoned, when we feel like we don't know which way is up. One of the lines is there's another in the water pushing back the seas. Like he's there making room when we feel like we're drowning, Very powerful.
Yes. So one of my favorite discussions, not so much a talk, but one of my favorite discussions to have with both high school kids and middle school kids. And generally, it was just a guy talk. When we were back at the cabin, where on a missions trip or on a fun summer trip or whatever with the youth group, was to have that conversation of like Jesus was a teenager just like you are, and he experienced everything that you guys experience. And there was always some the kid that was uninhibited and was looking for the shock factor would always make some sort of remark of and one particular comment seemed to come up all the time, and I won't mention it here, but but teenage boys and hormones, and they wanted to know, did Jesus have the same hormones and deal with the same things that they did? And my answer to them is he was fully human. He didn't sin, but he was a teenage boy full of hormones just like you guys were. And so I'm sure he experienced many of the things that you guys are experiencing. And, and it was just funny how that would always take sort of this, like, it was such an eye-opening concept for the kids. And, then there was the kind of the conversation of, well, did he get pimples, and did his voice change, and did he like girls, and, all that kind of stuff. And it was usually a very good discussion, because that would then lend it to the things that they were struggling with, the things that they were dealing with. And while that was one of my favorite conversations with middle school, high school boys, and for them to just have that realization of, Jesus experienced everything that I'm experiencing, I have a much harder time, like what you were just talking about, in terms of like I took such great joy in kind of expressing that idea to these high school kids, and seeing them kind of like have the light bulb go off for them, and the realization of what Jesus was. And yet here I am, almost 5 decades into being on this earth, and I'm not so good at doing that, now. And so I think about those conversations and how those kids responded to that. And, I guess just even have a personal prayer of like, God, I need that. I need to know that even me dealing with what I'm dealing with as a 50-year-old guy in America in the year 2020, you can still sympathize with that. You can still relate to that. You can still, and to your point, but I don't do that. I have this like, I put Jesus on the pedestal. I put him, he's God. There's certain aspects of, it's easier for me to accept that than to accept his human side. And particularly when it relates to, he truly does understand. And I think even in that, there's a part of me that like goes, and he did it without sinning. And that just makes me mad, because I'm like, well, I sin. And so I don't want your sympathy, because I give in and you didn't. So I don't know if that makes sense or not.
No, it does. So the one thing that makes me wonder, is like, do we keep the human side in the sympathetic side and the experiential, shared experiences side away as a way for us to try and fix it ourselves? Like if we keep Jesus kind of at arm's length and, say all the right stuff. Oh, Jesus, you're perfect. You're wonderful. Thank you for saving me, all the stuff. But like, just leave me here in my crap, and I'll figure my crap out, and I will sort it out, and I'll deal with it. And as opposed to welcoming him into that, and then letting the Holy Spirit, reveal truth and, sharpen you and convict you and that sort of stuff. I just wonder if we try to keep him at bay as a way to control the situation, or to not admit that we really do need more help than perhaps we would like to acknowledge.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that's part of it for me. I do think that is a big part of it.
Yeah, I was saying I wonder, to be generous, because I'm pretty sure that's exactly the reason I do what I do.
Yeah.
The last part there is right. So for who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. And I guess, this is obvious, but like the temptation is separate from the sin, right? And I think that's another part of that conversation you have with like those young guys about, there's nothing inherently wrong about being tempted to do or say something, right? But it's the choice: do you give into the temptation or do you not, right? And so there's oftentimes, like, especially when it comes to like, sexuality and that sort of stuff in the church, it's dirty and it's wrong, and then all of a sudden you're married and it's okay. And there's this whiplash that's like, well, my whole life I was told it was dirty and wrong, and I shouldn't think about it, and I shouldn't desire it, and I shouldn't think people are attractive, and those thoughts are evil. But now that you're married, it's like, okay, now go make all the babies you want. It's like, the messaging there is really, really broken. And I think what is healthier is acknowledging especially with teenagers, like, yeah, you're feeling exactly what your body was designed. One of the things your body was designed for, right? There's a reason we're attracted to other people. There's a reason we have sexual desires. There's a reason why God made sex enjoyable on purpose for fun.
Right. Yep.
Like if it was 100% about procreation, it wouldn't be fun. It wouldn't be enjoyable. It wouldn't be pleasurable. It wouldn't be something that you think about and want to do. It would just be like, all right, well, it's time to make a baby. Let's go, get some hammer and nails and, like, and so there's this concept here, right? That there are temptations that Satan wants to use what God has intended for good. And it's not just sexual stuff. It's everything that God has intended for good, Satan wants to turn and make evil or corrupt. And so that's where the temptation comes in, is just like in the Garden of Eden, Satan going, well, is that really what God said? Is that really what he intended? Are you sure that this part of it's not okay to do differently? And that's the temptation, right? Is the taking of something that God intended to be good and slightly twisting it. And now it's about us, and it's about self-service, and it's about making ourselves look good or feel good, oftentimes at the expense of other people. And so I think it's really, really important to have the discussions about that sort of stuff around this area of temptation and sin being different things.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think the other thing, too, that, particularly when it came to teenagers and sex and things like that, is, the standard is so high. Well, I can never live up to that, so I'm just going to give in and enjoy it all.
Go to town,
Yep. And so it was like, no, So, yeah, we very much distort what, God, we think of it as, and there's some of this is too, is, it is an element of honoring God and who he is by his nature. But then there is that element of, God doing it because he wants to protect us and wants what's best for us. And I know I often lose that aspect or that perspective when it comes to sin and indulging it. And so.
Definitely. So the last part kind of sums up the whole concept, right? Let us then with confidence. So because Jesus is our great high priest, because he has the ability to sympathize with us in our weaknesses, because in every respect he's been tempted as we are, because of who he is and what he's done, let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. And what I love about this verse is the use of the word confidence, and then the idea at the end that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. That we can go in our moments of weakness, in our moments of doubt, in our moments of fear or anxiety, in our moments of confusion, in our moments of just not knowing what the heck is going on and how we're going to do it, in our moments where we are the least confident in ourselves and in our situations, that is the exact moment that God says we can have confidence to draw near to him. Mm-hmm. And that he wants us to have confidence to draw near to him in the moments where we need mercy, where we need grace, where we need help, where we don't know what to do. And those, like I said it on this show dozens of times, those are the moments that I don't want to go to God because I feel embarrassed, because I feel like I'm not worthy, because I've done this sin again, or what have you, or I'm all in my head about what's going on. And the author of Hebrews here is saying, no, time out. That's the exact moment that you should have confidence to go to God and expect to receive mercy and grace to help. Like, that is what God wants. That is the reason Jesus is our high priest and did what he did on the cross, so that we can, in those moments, go, you know what? I'm not in this alone. There's somebody else here with me in this fire, in this sea, in this moment, and I should have the confidence to go to that person, God,
right,
and say, dude, I need help.
Yeah. Yeah, because for the high priest, if they weren't in the perfect, without, they hadn't sinned, they'd made the proper sacrifices, it meant death. The throne of grace meant death. Well, maybe not the throne of grace. I'd have to think about that a little bit more. But going to the throne, I guess I don't know.
I mean, yeah, you're at the mercy. You're at the mercy of the king at that point, and so you're hoping thumbs up, not thumbs down, is what you're going for.
Yeah, and so it was very real that they could die while they were in there if they weren't in the proper place, and so we're being told like this juxtaposed. At the very time, like you said, when we feel like we should least go is exactly when we should go. And we should go with confidence. And really, it's not confidence in us. It's confidence in him and what he has done.
Absolutely.
And what he will do for us. And kind of back to that original, it's believing. It is, holding fast to our faith, holding fast to the confession of who Jesus is, and being our assurance being in him and being in that. And not so much in ourselves and what we've done, but knowing that God is going to do what he says he's going to do, and that is grace and mercy.
Indeed. Man, so good, Dave. It's so good. I'm going to read it one last time, just top to bottom, because it's so good. Since then we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God. Let us hold fast our confession, for we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. So let's do that, Dave.
Easier said than done, right?
Well, all the good stuff is. Cool. Well, I think that brings us to the end for this one. We'll start chapter 5 next time.
Yeah, and this is a great example of the verses in the chapters being imposed by much later in time, because it why it breaks here, I don't have the slightest idea, because it's full thought into 5:1 about the high priest. And so, and like you said, we'll come to that next, but.
Indeed. So this has been the 175th episode of the Masterclass. If you go to supermegacorp.net/masterclass/175, you can find the show notes for the stuff we talked about. Also, if you're listening, somewhere, which you would be because you're hearing me say this right now, you're in a podcast app. So swipe around, you can find the notes there. There's links for getting in contact via phone or email or social media and other fun stuff for you to click on. So check out all that good stuff. And, well, shoot, Dave, I think that's it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, until next time, be good.
Bye.